From the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, this is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast. Coming up on the program,
we're going to talk about some 3 common problems that most gardeners are facing in their gardens right now.
Mike Novak with his environmental report on monarch butterflies. Your questions, our answers.
And Arlena Schott from Garden Wise Living TV. She'll give us some great tips and tricks. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast is permeating into your ears with your host, Joey Bear.
And it could be the weeds. Some gardeners try to get all the weeds out of their garden. Other gardeners leave them in their garden. It's really a decision that you need to make. There's benefits to both sides of that. It's just something that you need to figure out what you want to do for your garden.
And Holly Bear.
Canning is a science. When you're canning, you want to make sure you follow the directions, follow the recipe, don't cut corners, don't replace things. It's crucial to you, your health, and your family.
They're professional gardeners with full-time jobs, and they're on the air now.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast. Happy to have you along. I'm Joey Barrett. Beside me is my wife, co-host, gardening partner, and best friend,
Holly Bear.
Behind the TWVG microphone here at the WI Garden Media Studios in southeast Wisconsin. The information you're going to hear is vital and crucial to the success of your garden. You may just have to tweak some of the dates and times you apply it for. If you're tuning in for the very first time, we welcome you and hope you enjoy the program. You can check out all of our previous podcasts on our website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Underneath the podcast tab, you can see all previous guests and contents and topics all the way back, all the episodes we've done. And if you are tuning in for the very first time, you have no idea who we are, well, I was going to tell you a little bit about who we are. And if you're tuning in and you've listened to every episode, we welcome you back and thank you for tuning in. Well, Holly, what is a little bit about what we do? And then we're going to get into the 3 common problems that you, your neighbors, and everybody faces during a typical growing season.
Sure. So what we have on our website at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com is over 700 gardening videos, what to do with the food you grow, garden troubleshooting, all sorts of great information. We have that there. Then we also have a quarterly digital magazine, and we have 9 of those now, 9 or 10. And those are available for free on our website. And they cover some great topics. They're full color cover magazines. You can download or read that there. And then we also have some speaking opportunities. So if you want to check that out, we've got some great speaking opportunities coming up.
And you don't have to, we don't physically have to be at your location in order to present our information to you. So if you want to know more about that, you can contact us through the website under that red button on the right-hand side if you're on a desktop. If you're on a mobile device, you have to activate that show more button or something like scroll down somewhere in there. You can also contact us through our social media sites, and commonly can find all of them by using the search term, the Wisconsin
Vegetable Garden.
Yes, so Facebook, Twitter, the whole thing there. You can just find it. Google the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
And then we also have this podcast.
So let's get into the 3 common problems that everybody, no matter how good of a gardener you think you are, we face these problems as well. So it's not just we're telling you what to do. We face these problems as well. We've faced them. We face them every year. And we're going to go over them to kind of help guide you through some of the frustrations that gardening can give you. Now, if you're a gardener, if you're a farmer, if you're a IT technician, if you run a store, you're going to have problems in anything you do. And understanding how to manage or avoid or do things to make the problems less severe is important, so things go a little easier.
So we have weeds. Weeds is the first one.
So what about weeds? Why? I mean, this is when we talk about weeds and we talk about midsummer. This is about the time that the average gardener or the lazy gardener says, I'll be back in about October and just harvest what's there because this is too much work. But weeds are one of the most aggressive and things that make gardeners not want to garden. So
one thing you can do is you can disturb your soil less. The more you disturb your soil, the more you have a chance of kicking up dormant weed seeds or just producing weeds in general. Weeds run deep and then they propagate very easily. So you may pull the weed at the top. You might think, okay, I got a good section of this weed out, I have some roots. But a lot of times there's a lot more root. So it's going to put a new top on, and then the roots are going to continue to propagate and grow. If you have one small section of weed root in your garden, it can propagate overnight and put more weeds out. So you want to make sure when you pull the weeds, you're pulling deep down, just deep down, and pulling all them out.
Now, and when you talk about that, each little follicle of root can produce another weed, and that's what's happening. A lot of people go in and they'll till, thinking, okay, there's a lot of weeds, I'll just till, chop the weeds up, they'll start composting in the soil, and it looks nice. And it looks nice for about 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you've got more weeds than you ever realized than was before, because you're chopping up all those those roots and broadcasting them among your grow area, and now what once was one root and one plant has now became multiple dozens particles of roots, which are now growing new tops. Now, let's be honest with everybody. In order to get all the roots out with a garden fork, you can use a shovel. Garden fork works a lot better because the soil kind of falls through and the roots stay intact. There's time invested in this. Mm-hmm. There's time invested in this.
So you have to take time to do. Our garden is split into berms, so we take time to do one berm at a time,
or one section of grow area.
Yeah, one section of grow area, and it might take us. I think we have like 24 berms or something. We might do 3 a year, and it might take us a few years to get to all of them, but at least we're getting it done.
Well, and this year I was able to do a lot more than 3. I basically got through almost all but 2. And yes, you're disturbing the soil in order to get those roots out. And in the process of doing that, you're aerating the soil because of the compaction that soil sometimes naturally has based on the composition of it. Right. Some of these grow areas I was able to elevate just by loosening the soil up by about 3 or 4 inches, getting the roots out, and then what weeds do grow again from the disturbance and kicking those weed seeds up, as you talked about earlier. Very easy to remove them as a very young, because I can see them very easily because the large ones have been removed. I can get in there and just rake the small ones out and very easily weed control. Now, there are some other methods of weed control that are, somewhat organic, and you can use chemicals.
Sure. So one thing you can weed control is with mulch. Mulch isn't going to get rid of all your weeds, but the strongest of the fittest have to poke through.
Now, you want to mulch after you've weeded very thoroughly, or very, very early in the spring before the soil has warmed up, and that would allow those seeds to germinate. Now, we've talked about this several times on the program. In the fall, we'll come in and mulch the garden beds, these grow areas, with a very thick layer of shredded leaves, 12 to 18 inches, and then by spring they have broke down, or the pile has got to about 6 inches, and we'll move the leaves back, plant, and then bring the leaves back around the plants, the starts, as a mulch.
Sure.
You can use dry grass clippings that are chemical-free, seed-free. You can also use shredded paper, not that appealing. You could use straw. If you're going to go in a traditional ground where you're going to rotate crops every year, and you're not practicing the back to Eden method, wood chips are not the choice to be used, because if you incorporate wood chips beneath soil grade, they will rob the soil of nitrogen, which will hamper the growth of the plants that you're putting there. Right. So keep that in mind as well. You could use synthetic materials as mulch, but again, synthetics do not break down.
Yeah, so we talked about straw, grass clippings, leaves.
Let's talk about the chemical aspect of it.
Yeah, so then we have things like, we have a non-toxic chemical we've used called Avenger, and it's an organic chemical. It's made from citrus oils, and it basically chokes out the weeds. It prevents it. The oil prevents the plant from photosynthesizing, and suffocates it. You could use those chemicals that has glyphosate. It's the up stuff that you buy that just eradicates everything, and can, based on whom you do research, what type of research you can, leave a level of toxicity in your soil for years to come. This is what the big farmers use, because it's what the crops are. That's what the genetically modified crops
are immune to is that chemical that will kill everything except for what they're specifically growing. So that's your choice, depending on how you go about using. Now, we use mulch. We use the manual weed removal. We use the Avenger. We do not use the up stuff. So a little bit of everything, every combination there does make a difference. But the ultimate answer to weed removal is getting in there with your hand and a fork and getting the roots out. That's the ultimate answer to the problem there. Now, you can avoid the weeds altogether by using what?
You can use straw bales.
Straw bales is the ultimate I don't have weeds anymore method. So that's another way. Raised beds also limit the amount of weeds because you're bringing in good organic material. Containers because you're bringing in good compost, good material that has been treated or broke down properly. Traditional ground garden is usually where you run into the issue of weeds. So now let's talk about number 2, the second problem, which is poor production or production less than what you are happy with, or you think the plant should have done better than what they did. And this could be a combination of a couple of things. Could be poor soil. It also could be poor pollination. So the poor soil here, we can fix that pretty easy. Bring in good compost, enrich your soil with a good organic fertilizer. You can also mulch it, good in the fall, really bring in the leaves and put a good layer of mulch on the plants or on the grow beds. Now, if you're using containers or raised beds or giant grow bags, your soil should not be the problem because most likely you are bringing in compost or good compost and filling those locations with it. You don't want to use regular garden soil because of the compaction factor that comes along with that. So let's talk about what can we do in order to increase the pollination of these plants that we feel they're not doing as well. Let's the winter squash, the melons, not so much the corn, not so much the tomatoes and the peppers because that's all kind of not self-pollinated type thing. But you're really looking at your cucumbers, another big one that can suffer from lack of pollination. Pollination, most of these plants put 2 sets of flowers on. They start with a male flower, and it tests the plant tests and see if there are pollinators around. Now, pollinators are not just bees, are they?
No, there's different butterflies. There's different little wasps. They're not wasps. Those little weird sweat bee fly things. Hummingbirds. So there's different types of pollinators.
So they test and see if the plant. This is the way nature works. They put out the initial flowers, and that's the first ones you're going to see. They're just going to be a stem with a flower, and it explores to see if there's pollinators available. If the plant senses that there's a lot of action going on in the flower, they'll produce more female flowers. If they sense that the pollination is subpar, they will put out fewer female flowers and try to focus on getting those pollinated to carry on the seeds, to get good seeds, because these plants are not growing cucumbers or melons for us. They are trying to, by nature, produce another generation of seeds.
Right.
So that's one thing. You go in there, and that first set of flowers, which is the males, you can touch the internal portion, just stick your finger in or a Q-tip to stimulate it for the plant to know, hey, there's a lot of activity here. I'm going to put on a lot of female flowers. The female flowers will come about 10 to 14 days later, and you'll notice the female flowers being that behind the initial flower, you'll be able to see the small size of whatever fruit or vegetable that is going to appear. If it's a cucumber, you'll see a baby cucumber, etc., etc. So that's something you can keep in mind that you can help, and also bring flowers in. Plant flowers. Plant anything that attracts pollinators of bees or hummingbirds, hummingbird feeders, etc., to get these bugs in the garden.
Right. So that's one. That's the third one now is bugs. There's good bugs and bad bugs, and we addressed good bugs, which would be the bees and the pollinators. One other good bug would be ladybugs, and ladybugs eat the bad bugs like aphids. Now aphids are little. I don't want to say bloodsucky, but they're little. They suck the life out of.
They're the ticks of the garden.
Yeah, they suck the life out of your plants. They suck all the good
juices,
stuff.
Yeah.
So, and they can reproduce without mating, and they're born once they're 1 to 2 weeks old. They can start to reproduce. Now, so they can reproduce quickly.
Now there is a way to at least decrease the amount of bad bugs in your garden simply by incorporating a lot of plants in a general area. Most of us gardeners, we have grow beds or grow areas or rows where we have tomatoes all in one row, peppers all in one row, squash in all in one row. In order to get away from the opportunity for the bad bugs to come in and infiltrate and attack those plants that we are trying to grow, we can mix it up. Now, obviously, for most of us, it's far too late in the season to do that. But let's say we all have problems with the squash vine borer moth that lays the eggs and the larvae inside the black zucchini, the zucchini plants and the pumpkins, and the larva eats the center out. You think it needs water, you water it, and it's dead the next day. You can plant, let's say, mint around that or basil around that plant, trying to offset the fragrance of the plant where these bad bugs will come in and try to find a place to lay their larvae, and they get overpowered by the basil or the mint or the flower fragrance or the other plants that are surrounding those individual plants that usually get attacked, and then they will go to your neighbors and attack their plants because they're very open and able to get in there and lay their larvae.
Right.
So that's another way. Now, if you do run into problems of a infestation of aphids, you talked about the ladybugs, and you can buy ladybugs. And how's the best way, or where can we buy ladybugs at?
Just online. You can have them shipped to you, and they usually come overnight, I believe.
Very, very quickly, anyway.
Yeah, they come quickly. And then what you do is, at dusk time, you want to water your garden, or water the area you want them to go. So if you have one area that has a lot of aphids, you water that area. Then at dusk, you put them out, you release them, and they're going to be thirsty from their trip, so they're going to drink the water. And since it's dark, they're going to stay there. They're going to set in for the night, and then they'll find your aphids and they'll eat them. And it should help retain a lot of ladybugs to your garden.
And ladybugs can help pollinate as well, and control. They're like the army of the garden.
Right.
Now that's more popular, or that's more natural in the northern portions of the United States. More of the central and southern praying mantises are a very good bug to have, and you can get the cocoon in the early spring and have them. You can watch the baby praying mantises born and move them out to the garden, but that's very rare to see here in the upper portions of the Midwest. That's more of the central and southern portions of that. So 3 problems that all of us are facing in one form or another. Weeds. We all hate weeds unless if you have no weeds in your garden, send us a message and send us some pictures because we don't believe you. There's always some form of weeds, and you're going to have some form of production problems, whether that be poor production because of lack of pollination, or poor soil, which poor soil is easy to fix, as well as bad bugs coming in your garden and ruining things for you. So with that being said, we'll be right back with the environmental report about a good bug, a good butterfly, by Mike Novak, the monarch butterfly, as well as your questions and our answers right after this.
It's all about the soil at ManureT.com. With their grass-fed, antibiotic, and growth hormone-free cattle and horses, owner Annie Haven puts the quality in her premium soil conditioner. 100% organic and natural, whether feeding your flowers or veggies, indoors or out, you can grow organically with confidence. To purchase authentic Haven brand Manure Tea, small orders or large, go to ManureT.com. Always free shipping.
If you could double the life of your raised bed boxes by sealing the wood with a non-toxic wood preservative, would you? Well, now you can with a clear, penetrating product called Internal Wood Stabilizer. It's 100% non-toxic and easy to apply. Seal your bare, untreated wood surfaces, even chicken coops, by spraying Internal Wood Stabilizer. It's invisible, seals the wood from the inside out, and never wears off. Recommended by organic gardening experts. Internal Wood Stabilizer. Check it out at timberprocoatings.com.
A gardener knows that the key to a good plant is its roots. With poor roots, the end result is not good. Conventional pots and trays cause roots to wrap around and become root-bound. Then you try to unwrap the roots at the time of planting, hoping not to break them. But never again with the Root Maker, a non-chemical innovation that naturally air prunes roots to create more vigorous roots. Never a root-bound plant again. Whether trees, flowers, or edibles, home garden or commercial grower, more roots means healthier, more productive plants. To get your own, visit rootmaker.com.
Now back to two gardeners that make no claims that they know a thing about golfing.
We don't golf, so we're not going to listen to podcasts about golf or watch television shows on how to golf.
But they're pretty good at gardening. Joey and Holly Baird.
Welcome back to the program. If you want to go ahead and check out our sponsors, you can view them at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Click on the podcast tab. Feel free to support them as they support us.
And those links are also in the show notes below. Well, it's time for the regular appearance by our good friend from Q4 Radio in Chicago, Illinois. Mike Novak joins us each program with his take and his environmental report on how we can be better stewards of the planet that he, us, and you live on. So here is Mike Novak.
And now to a man who's not afraid to tell you what you need to do to keep the planet he lives on clean.
Take your food scraps out to your compost pile. Screw in a compact fluorescent light bulb. Turn on a window fan instead of an air conditioner. Low flow, baby. Shower heads and toilets. Take one napkin at Starbucks instead of 6.
Mike Novak.
Welcome to another installment of the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Environmental Report. I'm Mike Novak, and you can hear me live each Sunday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time on Q4 Radio, which streams at QUE4.org and on the Q4 Radio Facebook page. You can also get my podcasts at mikenovak.net, MikeNowak.net. I recently did a radio segment about how the garden clubs of Illinois are trying to get their constituents to plant more milkweed to help the endangered monarch butterfly. Monarchs are the only butterfly to migrate seasonally, some traveling as much as 3,000 miles from as far north as Canada to the Oyamo fir forests of the Sierra Madre in Mexico, which means that they are exposed to dangers in many different kinds of environments along the way. In a nutshell, the population of one of the most iconic insects on the planet has crashed, mostly because of, surprise, human activity. I'm talking about rampant land development, deforestation, and our use of herbicide-resistant crops, which lets farmers destroy milkweed stands while the crops survive. Climate change isn't helping much either. Wait a second. We're causing that too. Looks like we're batting 1,000 against the monarchs. Now, you might have heard that the population has gone from more than 1 billion in the late 1990s to roughly 35 million a couple of winters ago. While that number has risen modestly, a new study by the Monarch Conservation Science Partnership reveals that there is a substantial probability of quasi-extinction of the eastern monarch butterfly migratory population within 20 years if ambitious habitat restoration and conservation goals are not achieved. Quasi-extinction means that the population reaches levels that are so low that it would be unlikely to recover. Even the Obama administration has gotten into the act, introducing a plan to plant milkweed on federally owned land along I-35 from Texas to Minnesota as a way of increasing the population. However, that plan has been criticized by some as being inadequate. At least monarchs are on their radar, not literally, of course. But the strangest thing I've heard of are the so-called monarch farms, where thousands of the butterflies are commercially raised and sold to charities, which then charge people to release them as part of their fundraiser. The problem is that those monarch farms are largely unregulated. One researcher says that at least half of those outfits produce diseased insects. Famed lepidopterist Robert Michael Pyle writes, quote, "When celebrants are misled into thinking that they are doing something ecologically acceptable, even positive, By tossing monarchs into the void at their events, they are, in fact, a party to a scientific vandalism. Rather than acting green, they are helping to undermine our ability to correctly interpret the response of wild monarchs to all the challenges they face." End quote. But a lot of folks like to raise monarchs and release them. What should they do, as long as they're not doing it commercially? Well, for one thing, they can go to a group called the Monarch Joint Venture for information on rearing monarchs responsibly. Perhaps the best thing they might do is plant milkweed wherever they can. But even that has its challenges. There are more than 100 species of Asclepias, which is the milkweed genus, that grow in North America, and it's important to plant the species that are native to your region. Some of that seed has been hard to get, which is a reason to visit another great organization, Monarch Watch, and check out their milkweed market or their directory of milkweed vendors to find out how to get Asclepias that is appropriate for your area. Go to monarchwatch.org or monarchjointventure.org for more information how to help, not exploit, this wonderful creature. They both have Facebook pages, too. That's the state of our environment today. I hope you catch the Mike Novak Show on Q4 Radio, QUE4.org, which you can always link to at my website, MikeNovak.net. Go green or go home.
So there's some things to think about when it comes to supporting monarch butterflies, and that's something that we do. And you can see most good on some of the videos that we've done. A lot of milkweed that has naturally come up in the strawberry bed and in the front yard around the raised bed we have in the front yard that the monarch butterflies lay their larvae on, and kind of. We do our little part by not chopping it down. And you can get, as he talked about, you want to get the specific type of milkweed seeds that grow in your area, because the milkweed growing here is not the same in Seattle, Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So keep that in mind. Well, now it's time for... We like this segment. I don't know if you guys like it. The question and answer. You send us a question, we'll give you an answer. If you don't like our answer, you shouldn't have sent us a question. So if you'd like to submit us a question, there's many ways you can do this. You can go to our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, click on the red button on the right-hand side that says question. If you're on a mobile device, you might have to enable your See More button or scroll down and find the red button. You can go to our Facebook page, The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, and submit one there privately or publicly. We will see it. You can submit one on Twitter if you can get under 140 characters, but you want to use hashtag TWVG so we can find that. And you can just a number of different other ways there you can go about doing it. So we got a couple of questions here. One from Minnesota about peas. What's that one about?
So the Minnesota peas one. She was growing some peas and they don't grow so well. So she wants to know what she can grow. She pulled them up. They weren't doing well, so she wanted to know what she could grow in replace the peas.
Well, it's the middle of summer, so it's too late to do really peppers and tomatoes. Most of those are either root bound at the garden center or you've already disposed of what you had. Based on the size of the area, you could do sweet corn. Sweet corn can take, based on your variety, 65 to 95 days, maybe a little longer in some of the heirloom varieties. What I would recommend would be bush beans. Very easy to grow, fixes its own nitrogen, takes about 40 to 60 days to mature, to put pods on. This is just bush beans. Pole beans are a little different. And you can harvest them for about 3 weeks. So you figure 1st of July, let's take that number because it's easy to do some math. 40 days, that's the 10th of August. And add another 4 weeks to that, you're middle of September roughly. And then you're pretty much done there by the end of September. October's getting cold, so you can get some beans in there and get a good harvest. Now we found with a good, healthy bush bean plant, you can get almost about a quart of beans off of it in a year.
Yeah.
One plant, if you continue to harvest. And that's the thing we always stress, that you got to keep picking the beans in order for the beans to keep producing, because they'll put one set on and that's it, because they've matured the seeds in the pod, and that's pretty much it. So that's what. And there's other things you could plant. If you've waited later on in the season, you can do turnips, rutabagas, rutabagas 90 days, turnip 60 days, and they get better as they get into the fall and you get some frost on them. We can't grow them in the spring. That's why we grow ours in the fall. You could do beets at 60 days. Let's see, what else could you do? Well, beets. Yeah, I'd do beans if I was her. Right. So and there's other vegetables. There's a whole lot of vegetables that you. Well,
that's what we had suggested.
Yeah, that's what we suggested. So let's talk about corn. We talked a little bit about corn. Let's talk about corn. We've got another question here. Well, before we do the corn question, let's do the tomato question, which is. My tomato plants look good, but the bottom leaves are becoming spotted with yellow and black spots, dying off, and is beginning to work itself up the plant. Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations, you have the signs of early blight. That is not something you should be proud of, but it's something that we all get. It's a disease in the soil. It's a bad bacteria in the soil. Mm-hmm. And the main cause of this is... There's a couple of reasons. One is the soil splashing up on the leaves. So what you want to do is go in there and remove up to 25% of the foliage that is affected. Be careful. Do not put this in your compost. Put this in your trash or burn it. And if you're dealing with multiple plants, be careful of where you touch the unaffected plants at, because you will spread this by your hands or by your tools. Mm-hmm. So... once you remove the infected portions, hopefully it's less than 25%, and it's just some bottom leaves that are starting to turn, get rid of them, take them off away from the plants, and you can do a couple things here. Go ahead and put some whole grain cornmeal around the base of each plant. Just a handful. Put your hand in the bag, grab, sprinkle around. What does the whole grain cornmeal do? What's the benefit of the whole grain cornmeal?
Sure, so the whole grain cornmeal has a beneficial fungi in it called trichoderma. And what it does, it just helps combat that early blight. Now, at this point in the season, it should help still. But like Joy had mentioned, you want to remove the leaves, the bad leaves.
Now, it's got to be yellow whole grain cornmeal. It can be El Cheapo brand, but yellow whole grain cornmeal. And it's going to reduce the amount of blight that will get on your plants. It won't. We found it really does a tremendous job. It doesn't eliminate it. Yeah. But it really reduces. Now, the other way to increase the percentage of reduction of early blight in your tomatoes is mulch. Right. If you haven't mulched, get some dry grass clippings that are seed-free, chemical-free. Let them dry in the yard. If you don't have a mulching lawnmower, or if you have a bagger, bag them up, dry them on the driveway, and put 3-4 inches around each plant. Really, put the whole grain cornmeal down first. The whole grain cornmeal first. Then mulch heavy around these tomato plants. You're suppressing weeds, you're holding moisture in, you're reducing splash up on the plants from the soil, which is where the problems are going to persist. So keep that in mind. That's early blight. We all get that, or we all have that bad bacteria in the soil. So there's a couple ways of reducing or greatly limiting the amount of early blight you're going to get. Mulching, whole grain cornmeal, and removing those leaves, and being careful, because that stuff will spread just if you touch a bad leaf.
Do we have time for one more?
We got time for one more, and it's about some corn.
Okay, so Kelly here, sounds like she's having some problems here with her mother-in-law, but she said
that's not our area, but we're going to talk about corn here.
Right.
Yeah, not a family issue. So go ahead with this.
Okay, so she said, I was watching your video on Facebook, how to grow corn that resemble box. So she said, I was curious, my mother-in-law does this every year, and every year she gets fungus on her corn stalks. Not all of them. I figured she grows more corn than anything, so it gets more good corn. But I have told her in the past, if she does not feed the soil, she is only going to have dirt. And this is true, Kelly and everybody else. You want to feed your soil, and I guess her mother-in-law kind of ignores her or whatnot. Grew up on a farm, says she knows how everything does. But obviously, she sent us a picture of this corn, and it looking pretty good. But the problem is that she wants to make sure that, based on the picture, that it's planted well, and she wants to just, I think that's pretty much it. It looks healthy.
Well, she saw our video on Facebook, which we are a videographer contributor to Hobby Farms magazine. Mm-hmm. So you may catch those videos on Facebook, on the Hobby Farm Facebook page, as well as hobbyfarm.com on the website there. And that's where she saw our instructional video on how to plant corn in a block. And the corn, in big ag, the corn is planted in big, giant, long rows, and the soil is not necessarily naturally enriched. It's chemically enriched by fertilizer, a tremendous amount of fertilizer. They go in with nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium. There's some other terminology that are used. Then sometimes in the early stages of development on the corn, they will go in with either a dry anhydrous or a liquid or a gas anhydrous and put it in the ground, and that's basically an energy boost to the corn to get that to get the incredible growth. So you're putting a lot of stuff in the soil that's not natural in order to get the corn to grow these incredible yields that these farmers are needing to make ends meet. In a backyard garden, as the picture indicates, the corn looks good. The corn's in rows. I don't see a whole lot wrong with the corn, but you're going to have to feed your soil. It's not a good practice to every year go in there and use either a synthetic or an organic fertilizer and plaster it down. Now, we've done that a couple of times simply because the soil was very poor. But we were using the organic fertilizer in combination with compost, shredded leaves, coffee grounds to work the soil up to a level of adequacy in order for the corn to grow. Corn needs a tremendous amount of nitrogen in order to be successful. So, you know, her mother-in-law is 87 years old. 78. So the time of, you know, teaching her new tricks may be just best to leave it be as it is. But if she continues...
If that was my grandmother, she'd probably slap you or something.
The corn looks good, but also it wouldn't hurt to mulch around the corn, especially in an urban garden, to try to retain some of that moisture in order to get the corn to grow even better.
Right.
So with that being said, again, if you want to submit a question for us to answer, you can certainly do that by submitting it through social media, through our website. We will answer it personally, as well as we will address it on the program. Coming up after the break, our guest this week from Garden Wise Living TV,
Arlena Schott,
will be with us to talk about succulents, her TV program, and some garden tips on how to grow things. All that and more right after this.
Oh, yeah. What you say? You say Nasala Kombucha. It'll put some glide in your stride and some pep in your step. Nasala Kombucha. Yeah.
Nasala Kombucha makes your body happy. Nasala Kombucha makes your body smile.
At dollarseed.com, all of our seeds are only $1 a pack. And we have online resources that teach you all about the rewarding hobby of growing your own plants, flowers, herbs, and vegetables. Imagine the joy you'll feel when your children actually help you harvest your first garden crop, or the pride of knowing you'll never need a florist again. Visit dollarseed.com and grow a little magic of your own for just $1. Dollarseed.com. What could be healthier?
Water is our most important resource. The key is to capture the rain that falls on your property. No need for bulky rain barrels that are hard to handle and just don't fit in. Rain Reserve has solved the problem for you with their multi-size and color cube-like units. A rain barrel that does not look like one. Capturing rain easy, going unnoticed by passerbyers and blending into the surrounding. Construction so easy, even children can put it together. To get your Rain Reserve, visit rainreserve.com and use coupon code RAIN2016 to save 10% on total purchase.
This is Jeff Radke from the Lost Skills Podcast. You can listen to me at lostskillspodcast.com. Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast with Holly and Joey Baird.
Welcome back to the program. If you want to find out more information about the sponsors you've just heard and our entire sponsor lineup, you can find that information on our website underneath the podcast tab, and that website is thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com. Well, Holly, let's go to the TWVG hotline and bring in our next guest. She is a fellow Wisconsin native, and we're going to go a little farther north. Who's on the hotline, Holly?
So we have Arlena Schott she's from Elk Creek, Wisconsin, and Garden Wise TV started from a need for Arlena to help her gardening friends understand the need for deep watering. One show and she was hooked, and Garden Wise was born. Arlena has been the host as well as the producer of the TV series Garden Wise for over 13 years now, and continues to understand the hunger for great gardening and living advice.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast, Arlena.
Hello there. How are you guys today?
We are doing well. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on the program and share a little bit of your gardening knowledge with us and the rest of us and listeners from around the world.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're very similar to us in regards to growing zone. You're in growing zone border 4-5. You face
yes, I am. I'm in. Yep.
You face some of the same challenges as we do. What are some of the challenges that you face in a colder climate? Because we all don't live in Miami or Hawaii. We have to deal with more colder temperatures and time than we do warm temperatures and time.
Sure. I think some of the biggest challenges are the springtime, when we don't really have a guideline on when we're going to actually have spring. For instance, this season, in 2016, we had such a late frost that kind of hurt a lot of perennials in the garden, like hostas and things. So we kind of have to sit around and wait till Mother Nature decides that she's going to give us spring here in Wisconsin. And so that could be anywhere from May to the end of May to the beginning of June. And then, so as far as challenges, I would say varieties are a challenge at times. We need to make sure that we have varieties that are going to produce sooner than some other states, like our tomatoes and melons and things like that. We want to make sure that we have plenty of growing time in between. Other than that, the challenges are just like any other gardener, the soils and the fertilizers and things like that. But yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge, is deciding when spring is actually going to give us time or a chance to put our vegetables in the ground.
What are some challenges, or what is a challenging vegetable you have tried to grow and either found success or maybe tried to grow and found complete failure?
Oh, let's see. I'm thinking muskmelons and watermelons. Watermelons aren't as bad, but muskmelons sometimes tend to be a little bit persnickety, I should say. They like sandier soil, and I have a heavy loam soil. So sometimes they just don't do as well for me. And then sometimes they don't ripe or mature unless you get them in quite early. So I think melons, any kind of the melons, has probably been the biggest challenge for me to get, altogether, because my soil is so heavy.
Now, one of the things that you may do to increase the health and build your soil is using chicken manure, and you're very avid about growing or having chickens. What are some of the things that a new chicken farmer or gardener or a person who has chickens, what are some of the things that they need to know before they even think about, let's say people are thinking about, hey, maybe I should get chickens next spring. What are some of the key things that an individual really needs to think about? Because chickens can be a lot of work if not done correctly.
No, sure. It's just like any owning or having or keeping any critter. It's kind of like gardening. You need to make sure you have the proper area for your chickens so that they have water, food, and protection. Those are the top three. And protection, I mean from dogs or wolves or, in our case, raccoons. I lost quite a few chickens from raccoons last fall. So this year we had to kind of beef up the coops and make a little bit more effort of making sure everything is put in at night, every night diligently. Don't forget, because the coons come right in, raccoons, I should say, and take care of that. So when you're thinking about getting chickens, understand that they are a living critter, but very easy to take care of and maintain, and they'll love you as much as you love them. So, just get a nice coop that's enough area for them. They should have an area that they can come outside and enjoy the sunshine and maybe some fresh grass at times. So maybe just a small little run. And it should be enclosed enough to protect them from any predators. But other than that, that's about basically all you'll need if you're deciding to have chickens.
Now
really, that's it.
Now we're in a very cold. It gets very cold in the winter. Do you see that the chickens are affected by the cold, or is it you have to choose the right breed in order to allow them not to really? They're not really affected by the cold because of the specific breed you've got.
Right. Well, actually, I've had every single breed there is, and I have not found one that's hardier than the other. My browns seem to be a little bit heavier birds. And some of them have leg feathers, so that does help. But as long as you can keep your chickens in a coop that is protected from the wind and dry. Even here in Wisconsin, where we can get down to 60 below, 30, 35 below, because I think I'm a bit north of you. You guys are in Milwaukee or Madison?
Milwaukee area, yes.
Milwaukee, so you're about 3.5, 4 hours from me. So I'm a little even farther north. But we can get really cold, 30 below. That's not unheard of. And, and wind drifts and snow. But as long as they have an enclosed area, not necessarily heated, I do not heat my coop at all. I make sure they have fresh water every day because it will freeze up. So if you have a water heater, that helps. Otherwise, just take a bucket of water in every day when you feed, make sure everybody's okay. Have some good straw on the floor. That's what I do in my coop, just to keep them dry and keep them warm and protected from the cold winds here in Wisconsin.
Great. Now, you grow succulents, and for those who are not familiar with what succulents are, or what are succulents, and what would you suggest to somebody who is looking into growing them?
Oh, succulents are my newest favorite thing, right on top of miniature gardens, because they go so well together. And I think I love succulents more than anything because they just want to survive. I've had succulent cuttings sitting there waiting to be put into wreaths for almost a month and a half, and there they survive on just the humidity alone here in Wisconsin. So as far as what are succulents, if we were to think about maybe hen and chick, if our listeners know what a hen and chick is, that's kind of a succulent. Succulents are made of almost 3/4 of water. They come in hundreds and hundreds of colors. Their varieties range from, like we know of, hen and chicks to the sedums that we know as autumn joy sedums and things like that. It's a huge family. Succulents, there are, for instance, we call them our hen and chicks, our sempervirens, but there's different varieties. So what really pretty colorful blue ones that we're seeing now, and the golds and the things that we're using in our wreaths, those are typically meant to be seen and enjoyed all summer long, and then brought in the wintertime. And I have overwintered my succulents very easily in my basement areas. They like it cooler in the winter, not freezing, but cooler, but they do like a northeast facing window, and they like to stay dry in between. That's, I think, one of the biggest things people misunderstand about succulents, because they're made of so much water that people seem to think that they need a lot of water to survive, and that is the total opposite. Succulents need to dry in between. So if you put your finger in their pot and it feels moist, they do not need water. It's almost to the opposite of us gardeners. When I look at a plant and I look at the ground, the dirt, soil, and I see it's dry, I'm like, oh, I've got to water it. I have learned from experience that you want to let those succulents dry in between. That's very, very, very important. The succulents are just amazing, but understanding that in our climate here, in zone 4-5, they are typically meant for zones, that are like 8s and 9s and 7s, or and 6. Santa Barbara area, that's where a lot of the most popular succulent authors are from. They're from all California area. So to bring them out to us is awesome, that we get to enjoy them for the summer outside, as long as they have good drainage, and then put them away for the winter time. Now, they won't do as well as they do inside, but you can keep them, and then in the spring, put them outside. Like mine are all outside now, enjoying the weather. They like morning sun, afternoon shade, because they will tend to sunburn at times, but most of them will take quite a bit of sun, and they take a lot of heat. Just watch how much glare they're getting, because they will sunburn. And they are just so beautiful and so fun to watch grow. And now I've gone on and on about succulents, but I'm just really in love with succulents right now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your television show, Garden Wise Living, as Holly talked about in the intro. Started about a little over 13 years ago. And when was the aha moment where you said, you know, I don't know if you have any experience in television, but when was the moment you said, hey, I think I can do this, I should do this, we're going to do this?
Okay, I think I need to update a little bit. I apologize. My website must be, that would be my fault. It's 18 years now, which I'm just going to take that and pat myself on the back with and just throw those couple other years in there. I'm sorry. But let's see, when did it start? I've been a landscape designer and landscape installer for 30-some years, 35. Owned a garden shop and nursery for over 14 years. So when I moved to Wisconsin 21 years ago now, we lived here about 4 or 5 years, 5-6 years at that time. And we were having a heavy drought. I don't know if you remember that time when Wisconsin had that drought where trees were suffering. I mean, when maple trees started to turn in midsummer because they weren't used to not having all the rain that we always typically have. So, I mean, it wasn't raining for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. And so trees were really suffering because, why? Because they're so used to moisture on the top that their roots would run along the top of the soil versus maybe the Nevada roots that I was used to that ran deep. So I called the local station and I said, hey, you know what? You know, if you could do me a huge favor, I'm from a drought state. And, you know, Wisconsin is just not used to this. If you could announce that people need to really get some hoses and get them out there and start keep watering their trees, or they're going to lose them in the wintertime. Because, as we know, winter kill is when your trees and your brushes and your shrubs freeze dry versus freezing wet. So I was really kind of concerned about all these things going into the winter trees here in Wisconsin without being wet. So he's like, well, yeah, Arlena, you know, I can put that on, but wouldn't you just like to do it yourself? And I'm like, well, I suppose I could. He says, well, I'll send a cameraman out. So they sent a cameraman out to one of my job sites, and we kind of did a first show there, and I was hooked, and he looked at me and said, hey, do you want a regular show? And I said, absolutely. And that's how it got started. So I started doing a show like every 4 months, and they would edit it, and I got to looking at the edited product going, you know, it's not quite accurate. We really need to get the things accurate. So I took on editing myself. So I filmed it, I edited it, and I produced it, and I distributed it.
Well,
so that's kind of how that went.
Over those 18 years, you have seen the advancements in technology from VHS now to what is a VHS to all digital, which probably has made your job so incredibly more easier and quicker to do on the editing process.
It's either quicker, or if you have so many other options on how to put things in and how to change things and how to, you know, that it can take longer, actually. It's easier, yes, because it's all digital, so it's awesome, so you get to learn all the new things. But again, it's got more bells and whistles. I mean, do I want to fade in here, or do I want to flip it around in a cube shape, or do I want to... So by the time, at the beginning of it, when I started doing my show, I didn't have those options. I had like 6 little things choices that I could use, 8, 12 different fonts, maybe 6 fonts that I could use. Now you've got endless amount of fonts, endless amount of fade-ins, endless amount of sounds, endless amount of everything. So it almost, if you really, really, really wanted to, you could take a lot more time than I take anymore to edit it into a show. And as far as, yes, changes, holy, big, huge changes. Instead of we went VHS when I first started. Then we went to mini DV tape. And now we have mini DV tape, but actually it's a hard drive camera. So you have a backup of tape in case something goes wrong with your computer in your, I'm trying to talk, a computer in your camera.
Right.
So, yes, it's changed so much now. I mean, as far as capture, it used to be real-time capture in my editing system. Now it's just instant capture. And like you say, it's the sky's the limit for editing and software anymore. And it used to be in the past, because I have a 30-minute show, people don't want that 30-minute show. They want it on my community channel. That's where my big show, my whole show goes, on community channels. But when we come to now, we have social media. People are in such a fast mode. They don't want us to sit and watch a 30-minute show. So you upload clips, or you upload tips or pieces of that, and then offer it that way. So yeah, it has changed quite a bit. And back in the day when I first started, you didn't have a YouTube show. That was just like YouTube. Oh, that's kind of cheesy, you know. Everybody and their mama had a camera that's wobbling and running across the field, and you can't see the video. Was on YouTube. Where now, so different. You got Hulu, you've got YouTube, you've got Snapchat, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook. Oh my goodness, it's endless. Social media. You've got Blab. You've got you guys. Like what you're, you know, it's endless. Periscope. Oh goodness. Facebook Live, for gosh sakes, you know. So as far as a whole show anymore, it's going to come down to, I think, smaller versions of my show is what the content is starting to look like, I think.
Right, and you brought up Facebook Live. You do a lot of Facebook Live now, whether you're at garden centers or in your own kitchen, where people can immediately interact with you. And if they got a question, they don't have to wait to mail in a letter or an email. They can ask you right away. You can answer it right away or provide a source to where that information can be found.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely love it. It's crazy. Crazy how it works. You know, even though I've had Facebook Live now for, oh goodness, when it first started, I remember today's show announcing it, and I'm like looking at my Facebook and going, wow, I have Facebook Live. And now everybody, and it's so wonderful to see people I know just go, you know, I hear a little bling ding, and so-and-so is live on Facebook. It's so cool. Because like you say, it's instant. You can ask, wait a minute, what was that house that you were just looking at? Or, wait a minute, what did you do with that patio right there? Or, you know, what are you feeding your chickens? Yeah. So, yeah, it's awesome.
Well, great. Thank you. We want to thank you for coming on the program. And also, if people want more information about, you know, whether it be garden-wise or maybe they want to ask you a question, where can they find you?
Oh, you can either go Garden-Wise Living TV. If you just Google Arlena Schott, or Facebook is wonderful. I have Garden-Wise Living on Facebook. I have Arlena's Plantscape on Facebook. I have Gathering Gardens on Facebook. I have Arlena Schott is probably the most used. It's my personal, but it's what I use the most, I think, for my Facebook. And then we have the Miniature and Fairy Garden Society on Facebook, too. So, yeah, we have a conference coming up in July that we're really excited about. And you can get more information about that on the Miniature and Fairy Garden Society page. Sorry, I had to throw that in. So that's hidden in July. The conference is in July. So, yeah, we're excited.
Well, we thank you very much. We'll have those links for your Facebook page and the website in the show notes for our listeners to go over and check out your programs and your information. And again, we thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us on the program and share a little bit of your wisdom of gardening with all of us.
Thank you very much. And it's Green Blessings on Twitter. I forgot about that.
There you
Sorry
go.
about that.
And
Thank you so very much for having me. I love your guys' work. Keep up the good work. You're always very informative and very wonderful to watch.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll be right back after this.
What you feed your plants and soil matters. Tomatoes should be big and juicy, but not at the soil's expense. Age-olds grow, bloom, kelp, and fish and seaweed. Reliable fertilizers gardens by supplying the plants and the soil with fast-acting nutrients and natural ingredients to create delicious plants and healthy soil. If you desire juicy tomatoes and healthy soil to grow them in, visit ageold.com for more information on Age Old and our suppliers.
You want your next raised beds to be easy, functional, and beautiful? The Embrace helps you create the garden you've always wanted. Finally, raised beds that everyone can assemble and enjoy. No tools needed. Just slide any lumber into the Embrace corner, fill with your favorite soil mix, and you're ready to plant. Made from 100% recycled steel right here in the USA. And a portion of every sale helps to build school and community gardens all across the country. Let the Embrace help you create your next raised bed. Grow beautifully with the Embrace. Available at local garden centers and online at artofthegarden.net.
Looking for a fast-acting, non-toxic weed killer for your organic garden? One that works in cool and cloudy conditions as low as 40 degrees and is highly biodegradable with visible results in less than 2 hours? Then look no more. Avenger Weed Killer has it all and more. Made from oranges, Avenger is highly effective, easy to use, and has a pleasant citrus aroma. It is OMRI listed and approved for organic gardeners under the USDA's National Organic Program. Avenger Weed Killer is a choice for organic gardeners and homeowners who are looking for an effective, safe way to control unwanted weeds. Available in ready-to-use sprays and concentrate, ask your local lawn and garden supplier for Avenger Weed Killer. For more information and a list of suppliers, visit AvengerOrganics.com. Avenger Weed Killer, eco-friendly, deadly to weeds.
Hi, this is Chris Van Cleve, host of the Rose Chat Podcast. You can hear us at rosechatpodcast.com. But right now, we're going to talk vegetables, and you're listening to Joy and Holly Baird on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast.
Welcome back to the program. If you want to find out more information about the sponsors you've heard, our entire sponsor lineup, find that all in the show notes below, as well as on our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, underneath the podcast tab. And on the website, you can find over 700 how-to videos, digital magazines, as well as all previous podcasts in their entirety. Well, before we get out of here, we've got one more task to accomplish, and that is Gardening in 2 Minutes. Gardening in 2 Minutes is an audio production that Holly and I produce on a weekly basis for a couple of radio programs and a handful of podcasts. If you would like Gardening in 2 Minutes on your particular program, contact us through the website. This Gardening in 2 Minutes is what?
This one is 3 things you need to know, or important things to know before canning.
And here is Gardening in 2 Minutes. This is Gardening in 2 Minutes. When it comes to preserving the food that you've grown in your garden, canning is one of those methods you can use. Here are 3 things you need to know before you start canning.
You want to know the difference between what you can pressure can and what you can water bath can. Pressure canning includes things, low acid foods, such as vegetables like peas, carrots, beans, potatoes, and cube squash. You can water bath can things like beans and carrots, but then they're going to be pickled. So then you're adding a vinegar, sugar, lemon juice, etc. You can also do, aside from pickles, you can do chutneys, salsa, jams, jellies, things that have sugar and acid added to them. This is just for your safety. Choosing the right method of canning is the safe way to have safe food in your home.
Number 2,
using a reliable source. Sources such as the National Center for Home Food Preservation. You can look at the Ball Blue Book for Canning, Ball Canning website. These are all great sources, even Better Homes and Gardens and Taste of Home. All great websites for canning. You want to use recipes that are within the last 15 years, just for your safety, because food safety rules have changed over time. So you want to make sure you're using something that's safe.
Number 3
would be taking the rings off of your jars for storage. The reason we do this, 1, we can reuse the rings. 2, it's safer. If something happens, maybe there's some sort of weird sciencey thing happening inside of your jar that causes it to bust open, it's going to bust open at the lid. If you keep the ring on, it's not going to bust open the lid. Then you'll have a bigger mess to clean up. Also, if something happens where it causes your lid to open up and the ring is on, it might reseal itself. That's not safe either, because you don't know what's going on inside that jar. So keep that in mind.
For more information on canning, Safe Canning, our weekly video productions, as well as our free downloadable digital quarterly magazines, you can find all that information at
thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.
For a gardener, for all gardeners. For Gardening in 2 Minutes, I'm Joy Baird.
I'm Holly Baird.
So know your stuff before you can, so you don't get sick or hurt yourself or someone else in the canning process.
Right.
We appreciate you tuning into the program. If you like what you hear, you can certainly share it with a friend. Drop us a line. Tell us what you think about the program. as well as if you have a speaking engagement that you would like us to be part of. We can do that now through the magic of internet, no matter where you're at in the country. So the audio you've heard on the program is courtesy of sfx.co.uk and audioneutronics.com, two royalty-free and copyright-free websites we use to help liven up the podcast.
And Nasala Kombucha and Dollar Seed have provided their own.
So until next time, I'm Joy Baird.
I'm Holly Baird.
And we will see you in the garden. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Podcast is a production of the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com for the health-conscious organic gardener worldwide and distributed in association with WI Garden Media.